All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to start taking a look at non-proportional relationships. They're still going to be linear, so your parent function is still f of x equals x, but now they're going to be moved around. They're not going to be going through that origin. And when we're looking at these, right, so they're still, like I said, straight lines, but they don't go through the origin. So some review stuff from earlier. So I want to evaluate f of negative 2. So that means I'm going to go over to where x is negative 2, and I'm going to read down. So that would give me negative 1. And f of 1, right, so go over to 1, read up, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What two coordinate points do these function values correspond to? So they're just asking you to write it as a point. So this would be the point negative 2, negative 1, and this would be the point 1, 5. Right, I could read that off of the graph. All right, calculate the average rate of change of f of x, of f from x equals, and we did this in the last chapter as well. I need to subtract my y values, 5 minus negative 1, and then subtract the x values on the bottom, 1 minus negative 2. 5 minus negative 1 is 6, 1 minus negative 2 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. How does this value relate to the graph? Well, this is where, if we think about what we talked about yesterday, or not yesterday, sorry, the day before, when we were doing that activity with our iPads, this is really talking about how it's changing. So I can go, if I find any point on the graph, right, any point at all, and I'm just darkening them in, not just the ones we asked for, but to go from one point to the other, I am going up 2 and over 1. Up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1. Okay, so how does this value relate to the graph? This is then going to give us that vertical stretch as well. Right, it's a vertical stretch of 2. So pulling in some of that vocabulary from earlier. How is this different from a proportional relationship? It doesn't go through the origin. Okay, so this idea of our vertical stretch, it's a rate of change. It has a bunch of different names, and there's a bunch of ways to think about it. So I want you to put a box around this. I want you to star it. This is pretty big. So the rate of change is our changing in our y over changing in our x. That's what we did up here. This is also called the slope of a line. And if you think about skiing, if you've ever skied or snowboarded or anything, right, slope is how steep something is. So it can also be called rise over run. It's given the letter m, right? We say that it's m because it's how you're moving on the graph. And if you think about what we did, this is really how to show it. y2 minus y1 just means you have two different y values divided by x2 minus x1. Again, two different x values. We did that right up here. That's what we did. We just didn't write it as a formula. All right, so we're going to see if we can figure these out. So first of all, this graph is increasing, which means its slope, its rate of change has to be positive. Now, sometimes these are a little hard to read. I will fully, say that. But anyway, so when I'm looking at this one and I'm looking to try to find the points where it nicely crosses the graph, right? It crosses here, and then it crosses way up here. Right? It doesn't really cross at 3. I was originally thinking we could use 3, but we can't. So I'm going to count. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the slope. M equals. All right, here's another increasing graph, which means it's going to be positive. So I have to try to find some nice points where it's going to intersect here. So it's going to intersect here and up here. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, yeah. And I'm going to go over 1. Notice the difference, right? This has a positive, bigger than 1 slope, which means it's going up faster, right? It's more of a vertical stretch. This has a fraction. This is a compression. So we got to keep all that going too. All right, here's a decreasing graph. When it's decreasing, it means our slope's going to be negative, so I'm going to have to go down and over to get from one point to the other. So I have one that crosses nicely right about here, and I have the other one is way up here. So we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to show that as -5, and over 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's a decreasing one. All right, let's try another. Excuse me. So here's another decreasing, which means it's going to be negative. And I'm going to try to find some points. And this one looks like we're going to have over here and way over here. So this is down, -1, and over 8. Right, down 1 over 8. I want you guys to try 8 and 9 on your own, and then we'll look at them at class. You do have to really look at the graphs, and I know they're not dark, but I want you to try your best. All right, find the slope of the line that passes through the two given points. So this is what we did in the last chapter and what we did in the very first example here. So I'm going to take my y values. I'm going to first write the formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay. So I'm going to take my y values and I'm going to subtract them. So I'm going to have 8 minus x over, and then I have to do my x values, 4 minus 3. 8 minus x is 2, 4 minus 3 is 1. There's your slope. All right, number 2, I need my y values. I'm not going to write the formula again. So I need -2 minus -2. Do my x values, 0 minus -4. Well, -2 minus -2 is 0, which means your whole slope is 0. Right, 0 slopes are going to be your horizontal lines, but we'll talk about that in class. All right, number 12. Here are my x or my y values. So 10 minus 2 over your x values, -2 minus -4. So 10 minus 2 is 8. -2 minus -4 is 2, which gives me 4 or 4 over 1. I want you guys. You're going to try 13 and 14, but I want to look at 15. So for 15, so I have my y values, 7 minus 3, my x values, 6 minus 6. 7 minus 3 is 4, 6 minus 6 is 0. Well, you can never have 0 in a denominator, so this is undefined. All right, so you guys are going to try 13, 14, and from the graphs, you're going to try 8 and 9. And again, if you're a little off on 8 and 9, I understand it's because the graphs are not easy to read, but try your best. Any questions? Bring them to class and have a good night.